Hey everybody, Sullyman here. Today we're hopping into color, so let's go ahead and get started. You want to head over to Window, make sure you have all three of these open, that way I can kind of explain them. You want color, the color guide, and your Swatches panel open. I'm going to go ahead and stretch this out so you can kind of see what I have going on here. My color and color guide are here. Color essentially is really more for fine-tuning and checking what colors you're working with. Right now I have it set to HSB. I wanted to have this set not to the default RGB to show you what I use most. I use HSB. It's more intuitive when working with color, and you'll notice here as I kind of scrub through with the eyedropper, you know, these handles just kind of move around, and you can see as I'm in the red, the top hue is moving through just the hues. It's 360 degrees of hue, so it's like a circle. You might have seen color pickers that are circles or triangles, or a square like this, but it's 360 degrees of color. That's why you see the degree mark, and that's what hue is. It's just moving through hue. It has no lightness or darkness to it. It's just the pure natural hue running through the spectrum, like the rainbow. Saturation is the purity of the color, how much gray is in the actual color. So you can see here, this has no saturation or intensity at all. There is no red in that. It is desaturated completely, 0% saturation. All the way up, that's pure red, 100%. Anywhere in between, you're going to get lower percentages. So that's the intensity or saturation of a specific hue. And then you move into brightness, which is the lightness or darkness of that specific. If you see here, as I take the saturation out, we move into black and white. So that'll give you an idea of lightness, 100% lightness, 100% darkness is 0%, and anywhere in between you get these percentages. So that's hue and saturation. It's a lot more intuitive when color picking. You have all these other options when you hit the drop down menu: grayscale, RGB, CMYK, depending on what you're looking to do, complement, inverts. This is what you're going to be set to default RGB if you're in an RGB document, or CMYK if you're in a CMYK document. They're a lot harder to kind of pick colors and brightness, and you know, it's just not really intuitive for beginners to intermediate. So I highly suggest using HSB. If you're in the t-shirt game, you're really going to want to be on this HSB. So I keep it at HSB. That is the color panel. Color guide. This deals with shints and shints. I keep doing it. Dyslexia. Shades and tints. Finally got it right. And as well as picking color harmonies and specific color palettes, complementary colors, monochromatic, triads, just shades, high contrast stuff. So you can pick a color, and these will change, and it's a pretty cool feature in Illustrator to kind of help you work with color. Now the way shades and tints work is when you pick a specific color, what it's going to do is this middle point, or this arrow, is the actual color, and then it's working within whatever harmony that you pick. So let's say we do a complementary. It's going to give you a second option for the complementary. Complementary 2, which will give you more options, darker shades. You know, monochromatic, you can set to that, and it'll just give you the monochromatic tones for that specific hue. So let's select red, and you'll see here's the red that I selected. It gives me my extra tone options, and then those tones get broken down into shades, and if you see to the left, it heads to the darker stuff, so those are your shades, like a shadow. And then to the right, it heads to the lighter stuff, which are your tints. And that's really your color guide. Pretty easy stuff. You know, you can add color groups. You can edit the colors with the buttons down here, limit the color groups, and again, you have your drop down. So this is stuff that you'll want to play around with and get to know. You know, like setting your color guide options. How many steps down do you want to see? And you'll see it, you know, 3. It'll kind of limit you down to the 3, but you know, if you want a whole lot, that's what you can go ahead and do. your variations, and what have you. So there's a lot of stuff to kind of mess around. I'm not going to explain it all. It's something you can kind of hop in. I could spend hours going through that stuff. But it's nothing too crazy. It's pretty simple. I don't really mess around with it all that much. But that's your color guide. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that back in. And now here's your swatches panel. This is a pretty powerful panel here. What you're seeing are the default colors that Illustrator injects into your new document. And what you're looking at here are your registration marks or no color at all. Registration is something when you're working with t-shirts or printing, and you want to set registration marks for the printer to understand the borders of your work or the artwork. None is self-explanatory if you don't want any color. Then these are all your kind of default colors. It's just kind of pretty standard stuff. You can see when I hover, these are your CMYKs. And then these are more of the custom CMYK stuff. Right here you're looking at some default gradients that they have, a white to black gradient, orange to yellow, fading sky. This is actually blue to transparency, so it's just one color that fades into nothingness, essentially. No opacity at all. A vignette, which is black with a radial, which we'll get into when we get into the gradients. It's just black with a radial gradient applied to it. As it goes into the center, it fades into nothingness. And then you have some patterns here that are default for Illustrator. You can inject some of these patterns into the Swatches panel by selecting the drop down. You can open the Swatch Library and you have color books, which t-shirt artists, they use the Pantone color matching system and all sorts of color books that you can use. Metals, these are your gradients, like I said, you can go through some scientific stuff, the complementary and all that stuff that I just went through with the color guide. And then your patterns, so you can kind of go in here and do graphic dots and all sorts of stuff, nature, animal skins. Let's go ahead and upload one of these, and you can see right here when I hover, you got cheetah, alligator, elephant, giraffe, so we can kind of slap those in as we go, and you'll see that it's added it to this panel here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this out, open it up, and you can see I have all my nature animal skins. These are default in Illustrator. Pretty cool, powerful stuff. We'll get into that stuff later. But yeah, so all in all, you got your individual squares or swatches of color, swatches for gradients, and swatches for patterns. And then down here you'll see this folder, and then within that folder you have a group of colors. These are kind of grayscale stuff. They're better CMYK. And right down here is kind of like the spectrum, rainbow of colors. So you can also, go ahead and group those. You can create new swatch, delete swatches, group a set. So I could grab these right here by, if I hold shift, click this one, hold shift, and or actually control, I'm sorry. Click here, hold control. Why is that not working? Oh, I can't do that when I'm in Camtasia. I totally forgot about that, so that's kind of a limitation. But basically, you can hold control and select multiple, and then group them together. You have Swatch Options, so you can head over here when you're creating a swatch. And set it to a process or spot color. I'll get into that in later videos. The one you do need to know, let's go ahead and double click this. I like to use global when I'm using colors in artwork, so I can change them on the fly later. That makes it a lot easier. So I'll show you what that does now. I'm going to go ahead and create a custom color. Just kind of swing around here anywhere and say I love this color. Hit OK. I can double click. Whoops. Double click, drag it over here. That creates a new swatch. I can double click that swatch now. I can rename it my custom color, and you can name it whatever you want. We'll leave it as a process color for now. I'm going to hit global, and we can always change color mode if we want to refine it even further to get our color right, and hit OK. And now you'll notice out of all these colors, this one has a little triangle in the bottom right corner. That just signifies that it's a global color. And I'll turn it to spot and show you what happens. And you can see a little spot inside that triangle, letting you know that it's a spot color. So I'm going to go back, put it to process, leave it at global. So I'm going to leave that color for later, but just know that the global option's pretty powerful. We'll get into that as I move along. Okay, so yeah, that's your Swatches palette. Remember, you can use the drop-down menu to inject all sorts of color books and different default patterns and colors and color harmonies that Illustrator has for you, or create your own, like I have here, and save them for later use. And keep in mind, you have the easy access drop-down there as well, and you can use Cooler, which is a new to, I believe, CS 6 and up. Don't quote me on that. Might be just the CCs, but yeah, Cooler is a color harmony and color picker. It's pretty fantastic. You can check it out online. It's I believe still a free tool from Adobe that you can create color harmonies and save them for later use. And once you save them in the web or find a picture that you can create a color harmony out of, you can then bring it into Illustrator through this Cooler menu. Okay, so anyways, we're going to stick to the basics for now. Let's get color. You guys are pretty much waiting for that. So, but that's the breakdown of the color panels. This was the custom color that I picked. I'm going to leave that in here. I'm going to go ahead and head over to stroke, turn that color off because I don't want to work with that. You'll notice when I click that, my color panel opened. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So let's grab us, let's see, a rounded edged. I'm going to use my up and down arrow keys to refine the corner. Remember, keep using the stuff I taught you in previous videos. It just makes you quicker. So what you're going to see here, I selected red, but it went on the stroke. I don't want it on the stroke. I want to go ahead and make that the fill and remove the stroke. So you can do that by swapping, which is this, you see the two arrows, kind of cornered. Click that and it'll swap the colors. You see as I click, it swaps back and forth between the red being on the stroke to the red in the fill. When you hover, it'll give you the shortcut, Shift X. So you can hold Shift, tap X. You can probably hear me pounding on the keyboard. That does the swap as well. I highly suggest learning that. And you have down here to set to default, or hit D, which will bring it back to default colors. I hit D and went to default colors. I'm going to hit undo, Control Z, bring it back to what I had. Now down here, what you're going to see, I can also pick through gradients and non-color. You'll see as I move through here, I have no color for the stroke, gradient for the stroke, or a solid color fill for the stroke as well. There's also shortcuts for that, and you'll see that it's the greater than, less than, and forward slashes to move through those. I'm using my keyboard shortcuts to cycle through them. They're next to each other on the keyboard, so get to know those as well. So I'm going to go ahead and knock out the stroke color. I want the fill to be red, so that's good to go. Let's go ahead and grab the ellipse tool, create a circle. I'm going to hold Alt and Shift to keep it perfect, and expand from the center. Let's go ahead and select, swap it, make it green. Let's go ahead and make the stroke yellow. We learned the stroke panel in the previous menu, so I'm going to add the weight and expand it from the outside. And yeah, so that's coloring objects. Nothing crazy at all, so just keep in mind, you can tweak colors in the color menu. You'll notice here I can't do anything. They're all kind of grayed out. It's because I don't have the active color selected. So I'm going to click on the actual fill, and you'll see that it activates the color. So now I can go in and refine the color if I wanted to, darken it up. It's a real powerful panel. You can do the swapping and all that through here. You can change the colors to default, black or white, or turn off color as well. You can head over here and do tints of that specific color. Head over to the shades of that specific color. So yeah, that's coloring objects. Nothing too crazy. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of give you a brief understanding of gradients. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and slap an object down. I'm going to go ahead and shift. X also cycles through. Shift X swaps. If you tap X, you'll see I can activate either the fill or the stroke. That's a quick one for you. So I use that a lot. Get to know your Shift X and just X. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stroke using my shortcuts, and I'm going to go ahead and use the less than to apply a gradient. It actually applied it to the stroke. I'm going to go ahead and Shift X to swap and use my / to turn off that, activate the fill, and you'll see that when I added the gradient to my object, the gradient menu popped out. And what you're looking at is a radial. The type, it's a radial. Think of it like a circle, the shape that I'm using. It basically, you can see the two colors that it's using in the gradient, the white to black. So you're seeing the white expand out to the black edge, and it's a circle. I'm going to go ahead and delete that object and open up blending. The blending layer that I created, this will kind of explain and give you a brief overlook at gradients and blending mode. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. So here's the square, and you can see the radial circular gradient applied to this object. So the white is expanding out to the edges that are black in that circle form. There's a lot of stuff you can use the radial for. This is a linear. You can see the type has changed to a linear gradient. That's just a straight gradient from left to right, up or down, whatever direction. And again, you can change the direction here from white to black. You also have your gradient tool, which is super powerful. You can change the actual gradient on the fly, the amount of white expanding out, the midpoint between both of them. You can drag out the black. You can also move the point of origin for that gradient, and you can actually rotate. So from the origin you can't rotate because that's the pivot point. If you go out to the I don't even know what you would call it, but the non-point of origin, you can shrink the gradient as well. You know, the starting to the ending point. And then when you expand out a little further, you'll see that you get to the rotation point, so you can actually change the angle of your gradient. And you can do that all within this panel. I highly suggest getting used to using the gradient tool because you can stretch out from anywhere. And you'll see that the marching ants or the dashed line kind of gives you the direction for the gradient. So that's your gradient tool. Holding shift will also lock it into place. Just like when you're working with shapes, you see it snaps into 45-degree increments. And that's gradient. So you have two types, linear, which is here, radial that's here, which is the circular, and the linear. You can change the colors here. The way you're going to go ahead and do that is click to activate the color. You can change the opacity, knock it down to 0. I'm going to turn off the background so you can see what's going on. You can see the checkered transparent background through that because I turned the opacity off. 100% is 100% of white. Do it again to show you 0% of white and anything in between. So we'll leave it on 100. You can change the location, which is just like using the gradient tool and moving the point of origin. Go ahead and turn the background back on. Okay, so to change the color, click to activate the color, and up in your swatches palette, you want to hold Alt and then select the color you want to change it to. So we'll do this kind of darker red. Let's activate this black and change it to yellow by holding Alt and then clicking. So now we have this nice hot looking gradient. Let's go ahead and change this one here. I'm going to click to activate the white, do this nice light blue in the center, click the black, hold Alt, and then select the blue, and it's a nice cool looking gradient. Same with the gradient tool. I can go to tap G or click the actual tool itself, and we can move the point of origin around. We can rotate it, which isn't really going to do much when you're working with a radial gradient. You know, you can expand out either way from the point of origin. Now with this radial, you can actually bend in to kind of almost, I like to think of it kind of like a spotlight, and then rotate it, drag this one to expand the size, and then it looks like you kind of have a, oops, let's go ahead and do that again. Knock it in. Looks like you kind of have like a spotlight shining onto this square plane. So that's gradients. Now let's go ahead and move into blending modes. I'm going to go ahead and, you know what, I'll just leave them there. I have these two wonderful objects here. I'm going to isolate them. What I just did is Control X, or went to cut, Control X. So they're cut, and then I'm going to Control V, or edit paste these objects into the document again. Now these two objects here visually are identical. The only difference is one is using a gradient, the second is using a gradient with a blend mode. And blend modes, which you'll see, I'm going to go ahead and stretch this out, you'll find in your transparency panel. Transparency, like the background, when I turn it off, it was completely transparent. You're working with opacity with your transparent. And then you can also change the blend mode. You have dark, multiply, and they're sectioned off. These darken things, these lighten things, these are for contrast, knocking things out, so forth, and coloring, and so forth, so on. I'm gonna send you guys over to, let's see here, sorry, looking at some articles before we were doing this video, but I'll link this article to you guys. This breaks down blending modes. If you're the type of person I am and like to know what you're doing and understand things to your maximum potential, I'll link this article to you guys. It's by Robert. I forget. It's in the article, but thank you, Robert, for this breakdown. It was very helpful for me. But I'll link it to you guys as well. Breaks down blending modes, and this is essentially kind of how they're grouped. You have your normal and your normal section, which is just normal and dissolve. You'll go ahead and play around with these later. I'm not going to get too in depth with these. You can do that through this article. This section's for darkening, lightening, contrast, inversion, cancellation, and component. Component, I like to think of more adding color to things and what have you. So anyways, I'll link to that article, but I'm going to go ahead and hit, I'm going to turn the background back on. To do that, it's Control-Shift-D. So, like I said, one of these objects is just working with a gradient, no tricks to it, and then one is blending modes with a gradient to get the effect. So I'm going to go ahead and actually turn it off again, and I'll show you exactly what's going on. This object right here is completely just color and a gradient. And you'll see when I drag it off, they look like buttons that you can kind of push in, kind of like the, if you were at the arcade mashing on the buttons, these are like arcade buttons, using a gradient to get that effect. So I'm going to drag this out so you can kind of see what's going on. So it's just basically two ellipses. The inner ellipse has a gradient that has a lighter blue and darker blue than this, the larger ellipse on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and hit undo. You can see that's perfectly matched up. That's what's going on. So let's head over to the gradient menu to see what's going on. So you see the lighter blue applied, the darker blue applied. They're both 100%. The location's a little off, and I'll activate the gradient. So you see the point of origin's down here, and you can see with the dashed line where the gradient's being cut off. So if I move that around, you could show the depth of the button by moving that. So I'm going to go ahead and move that back in. Use my smart guides to align it to the center. So that's just a gradient. This one, however, you'll see when I move off, this actually has a transparency set to it and a blending mode set to it. I'm going to go ahead and head over to transparency. You're going to see opacity. I'm going to turn it to 100%. Now you can see 100% of it, but it has a blending mode. You can see when I hover over the object, it's affecting the color, almost like it's adding, intensifying, brightening the color and darkening the color at the same time. So I'm going to move this into the center so you can see that looks, a lot more intense and almost looks deeper than what this one is. I didn't want it so deep, so what I did was I knocked the opacity down to about 50%. And then I have my blend mode. I could set to, let's see here. I'm going to hit undo. Let's get back to where we were. Just moving that around. And you can see that it's set to overlay. So if I head over to that article, find overlay, it's contrast. So that's exactly what it's doing. It's contrasting this blue color. I'm using the black and white to either really darken or lighten the color. And you'll see there's differences within, lightening and darkening. Screen will just add white, whereas with overlay, it just intensifies the blue and almost moves it towards a cyan color. So I'm going to keep moving. Okay, so it's set to the overlay. I'm going to show you, flip through the modes. Here's normal. I'm going to hit it to 100%. So that's normal. Here's darken, so it's basically knocking out. It's only going to darken the color. All that white information you see gets knocked out and leaves it to the original blue. Multiply. This one's going to knock out all of the white that was in the gradient and just apply the blacks. Whereas screen only applies the whites. You can see it knocked out all the blacks and kept all the whites. So now you can see screen is lightening, but it's really not light. I mean, it's lightening here, but it's just really applying white. That's where overlay comes in. And overlay is a contrast, so it's using both the black and the white, and you can see that it's not necessarily adding white to the blue, it's intensifying the blue, almost heading towards the cyan. And that's where the contrast. So try to remember these groups in your head. You have the normal, you have darkening, lightening, and then your contrast groups. These are pretty powerful, the contrast. I mean, they're all powerful. I tend to find myself using overlay and soft light, hard light more than I do the others. But multiply and screen are pretty powerful. And that's blending mode. That's the basic overview. And you can see here, when I hover over, I can change the transparency, the amount of effect it's going to have, and change the blending modes. These are things you're going to want to play around with and experiment with, because you'll get some pretty cool effects sometimes on accidents. By accident, I'm sorry, I can't talk today. But yeah, so in the later videos we'll get into clipping masks, and that's what this is here. You can see clip, we can make a mask, and all that stuff. But today we're just kind of working on color, blending modes, and opacity and gradients and what have you. So I hope this wasn't too scattered brain for you guys, and you took something away from this. As usual, I just want to thank you guys for watching, and you can support my channel by liking, sharing, commenting, or subscribing. Thanks again for watching, guys.